I just wanted to talk about a pattern that I've observed, with myself and as well as with some teams that I worked with um, in the past. And this is the idea of sort of you get into a situation as a team, and it's sort of a log jam. You're stuck. It's sort of like a gridlock. You can't move. There's an intention to move amongst the individuals, but then you can't move. So I'll give you an example, very recent example from yesterday, from the OC team. And I think Pari, you were not there in the call. So we got into the call. Just to give some context, right? The OC team is working on significantly reducing customer onboarding time, configurability, and customer onboarding. So they have decided on these pre-editing rules that they have chosen. They have a list of some 900 rules. Pari and team have built a UI interface, so that's there. So they have to bring it together. This is the MVP possibility. So what happened? I'm just connecting this to the delegation thing as well, right? So what happened? The initial thing, the delegation was each person take some category of rules and pick 10 rules, right? So casing rules somebody will do, they'll pick 10 rules. Formatting rules somebody will pick 10 rules. So that is being done. All that they did, the team did. Now I think it was Anu Raja from Pari's team who was the developer. They have to bring it together, right? To see how we can take the rules and put it into the interface, and because that was the digital MVP of sorts. Now we got onto the call, and then we understood that the rules have been segregated. It's all there. Anu Raja is waiting for some input from Pari, right? Now Pari, they've exchanged some messages and so on, but we got stuck. It's kind of like this helpless situation. What do we do? 5 minutes, the call was over yesterday. So what do we do? Now this is what I think of as a log jam. It's an unresolvable situation, but there's an intention to move. Think of a traffic jam. It's gridlock. Everybody wants to move in their direction, but nobody can move. So what we did was, we said, okay, we are all here. We have some time. So what can we do in this next 20-30 minutes? Obviously, we can't wait for the UI thing to get clarified, etc. So that's out of the window. But we have some rules. So let's take one casing rule. This is what we started off with. Let's take one casing rule and let's try to fit it into the UI thing that's already there. So as a team, we just took that task. So it's one casing rule. This was something to do with the, whether the capitalization of the article title, that was the rule. So they took that rule, they tried to fit it into the UI that was already there. And guess what? It didn't fit. Just one rule. Okay. So what happened? Abhaya and others said to Anu Raja, okay, we should change this HTML interface. So people are changing it in the meeting, actually. This was the MVP sort of unfolding live, basically, right? And then, so the UI changed because the thing didn't fit. The options changed, the construct of the UI changed, etc. Then we took one other rule, and so on. So suddenly we found movement in a situation that was like a helpless situation, right? So normally what would happen? Okay, we'll come back next week and then have the same discussion. Now, next week. So why is so this is a pattern that I've observed in many situations, and I can give you several other examples. But what is the pattern? The pattern is very simple. We are thinking in the abstract scale level. Think of the zoom in and the zoom out, right? So this is like the zoom out, basically. So the development team is thinking they have to automate this UI, right? And then the other folks are saying, hey, look, the rules are there, please automate. Now, okay, I mean, where do we go from here? But then, for you to automate, I need to get clarification on so many different things, etc., etc. So a very simple switch is whenever you are stuck, whenever you're on a log jam like this, just ask yourself, am I specific enough? Because if you get specific enough, you can get unstuck. I'll give you an example from this conversation, right? Sukumar was asking about the model of delegation, right? You got to pick that ladder, you got to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. That's the option you have to pick. But nobody answered. And then finally Kumar Raja answered. But then before that, he said something. Can you guess what he said? Anybody? He said something, but before that, Kumar, I was waiting for that to unfold, but then before that, Kumar Raja sort of answered. He said, let's take an example. See, that is the pattern, right? You get stuck because why are we not answering? Because we have to consider all possibilities and analyze everything and then give you an answer. So, well, that's too much work, right? That's too much load. But can we take one and then decide? And this pattern applies if you're struggling with a pucks, if you're struggling with an MVP. Usually, I've seen this with MVPs, right? Where the MVP possibility is red and we are stuck, we have to move, we can't move. I mean, you take Ayyappan's example, right? He was talking about how initially they're manually doing it and then getting to some even better automation. There's a Google sheet, they're manually doing something. That's the way to get answers. So that we do this, but we just try to recognize this pattern. Whenever we are stuck, it's probably because we are not getting specific enough about something. And since we don't get specific enough about something, we don't get the clarity to move forward. So the log jam continues and the busyness continues and everything sort of continues, but there is no breakthrough. The breakthrough can only happen. Now, I don't know if Pari, this is what you are referring to when you said the team is working, without you and sort of doing MVPs, etc. Because I logged off the call. I had to log off the call in about 20, 25 minutes. And the team continued, basically. Yeah, Pari, do you want to, anybody from the team, they can share their experience from yesterday's call, but that's fundamentally what it is. And I've seen this work almost every time. Whenever I'm stuck, I ask myself the question, what am I not getting specific about? And that I should get specific about, right? That the zoom in, the nuance. The moment I get there, some other options open up that I have not thought about.
It's very good. I think the example of the B Ops team, right? Their goal is very ambitious. Automatically in real time, give me invoice. I don't know how you will figure that out, right? So do this manually first, use Google Sheet, automate something. And I think eventually they will figure it out because they have momentum and movement in that stated direction. So I think that's fantastic. Good observation and discussion, Sanjay. Very nice. How to break log jams. Excellent. So you guys can take that into account in your thing. I mean, it was last, I think, Anbu, you were involved with this case. There's another pod team in another program. They came up with an augmented reality-based assistant for a installation process. No, they needed an AR programmer. They couldn't get it. And then we were discussing and Anbu was in the room and he said, hey, why don't you guys do a WhatsApp call and record the video as if instead of the AR, use a human being to do the instruction. Hey, push this button, and that's what the team ended up doing. Because otherwise they were in a log jam. And we didn't know how to advise them, right? We don't have AR programmers in Tiny Magic. So we were like stuck, right? The whole system was stuck. It's a brilliant idea, but unless you demonstrate the idea to clients, pie in the sky idea anybody can come up with. So that WhatsApp call and installation, hey, connect this wire here. That itself demonstrated the idea what AR-based technology could do. And slowly, now you have momentum and you have client validation and so on, right? So this breaking the logjam is a very important idea, I think. So thanks, Sanjay.